5 words from a 32-year-old mother shattered the Family Feud studio and exposed a secret that was slowly poisoning her relationship with her daughter. Jessica Park stood at the podium, carrying 15 years of self-hatred and a terror that her eating disorder would destroy the child she loved more than life. What happened next proved that the most dangerous lies we tell are the ones we tell ourselves in the mirror. It was a bright Wednesday afternoon at the Family Feud studios in Atlanta. The Park family from Seattle was competing against the Rodriguez family from Phoenix. The atmosphere buzzed with the typical energy of families ready to compete for prize money and television fame. Jessica Park stood at her family's podium, fighting to maintain the composure she'd perfected over 15 years of hiding her eating disorder. She was 32 years old with long black hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and wore a flowing emerald green blouse that carefully concealed how thin she'd become. Her smile was practiced, her posture controlled, her entire appearance designed to project health she didn't feel. To everyone watching, Jessica appeared to be a typical suburban mother, perhaps a little nervous about being on television. But beneath her carefully crafted exterior, she was fighting a battle against her own reflection that had consumed half her life. The Park family had been selected for Family Feud 8 months ago, during a period when Jessica thought she had her bulimia under control. Her husband, David, was excited about the opportunity. Her 8-year-old daughter, Lily, thought it would be fun to be on TV. And her mother-in-law, Helen, was proud that her family had been chosen. What they didn't know was that Jessica's eating disorder had resurged 6 months ago with a vengeance. The binge and purge cycles that had defined her 20s were back, triggered by stress about Lily starting to notice her own body, asking questions about dieting, making comments about being fat at 8 years old. For 6 months, Jessica had been living a carefully choreographed lie. She planned meals she wouldn't eat, made excuses to use the bathroom after family dinners, and weighed herself obsessively while her family slept. The scale had become both her master and her judge. But worse than her own relapse was the growing terror that she was infecting her daughter with the same body hatred that had nearly destroyed her life. Every time Lily asked if she looked pretty, every time she refused dessert, every time she sucked in her stomach looking in the mirror, Jessica saw her own disease taking root in her child. Steve had noticed something about Jessica during the family introductions that concerned him. There was a brittleness to her energy, a way she kept adjusting her clothing, a smile that seemed to require enormous effort to maintain. "Jessica, tell us about yourself," Steve had asked with his usual warmth. "I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I work part-time as a nutritionist," Jessica had replied, the irony of her profession not lost on her as someone who had spent the previous night bent over a toilet bowl, purging the dinner she'd prepared for her family. "A nutritionist? That's great. You must have a healthy family," Steve had continued innocently. Jessica's pause lasted a moment too long. "We try to make good choices," she'd said, not mentioning that her definition of good choices included eating nothing but carrots and celery for days, followed by consuming everything in the pantry before purging it all. The game progressed through the first 2 rounds with typical family energy. David was competitive and strategic. Lily showed the quick wit that made her parents proud, and Helen demonstrated the wisdom that made good television. But Jessica remained mostly quiet, speaking only when directly called upon. There was something about her stillness that went beyond normal game show nerves. It was the careful control of someone who monitored every calorie, every movement, every moment when she might be perceived as taking up too much space. During the 3rd round, everything changed. Steve announced the category with his usual enthusiasm, completely unaware that he was about to touch on Jessica's deepest shame. "We surveyed 100 people. Top 6 answers are on the board. Name something you hide from your children." The question hit Jessica like a physical blow. For years, she had been hiding the most fundamental part of herself from Lily, her complete hatred of her own body, her obsession with food and weight, her belief that her worth was determined by the number on a scale. Around her, her family started thinking of typical answers: bad habits, financial stress, adult problems, normal secrets that normal parents keep to protect their children's innocence. But Jessica was thinking about the lies she told every day, pretending to eat the breakfast she threw away, claiming fullness when she'd eaten nothing, making excuses for why she couldn't join Lily for ice cream, modeling a relationship with food and body image that was slowly poisoning her daughter's self-perception. David buzzed in first with confidence. "Money problems," he said, earning a good response from the audience and the number 4 spot on the board. The normalcy of his answer felt like a mockery to Jessica, who was hiding something far more insidious. Lily went next with bad words, which got them the number 6 answer and giggles from the audience. Helen tried scary movies, but it wasn't on the board. The control passed to the Rodriguez family, who managed to find 2 more answers before striking out. Now it was Jessica's turn, and she approached the podium with legs that felt like they might collapse beneath her. The studio lights felt impossibly harsh, highlighting every perceived flaw she'd cataloged in mirrors for 15 years. Steve smiled at her encouragingly, completely unaware that he was looking at a woman who weighed herself 3 times before leaving the house that morning. "Jessica, your family needs one more answer to stay in control. Name something you hide from your children." Jessica stared at the board, her hands trembling as she gripped the podium. Behind her, her family was offering suggestions: cell phone bills, junk food, work stress, innocent secrets that belonged to people who didn't spend their lives at war with their own bodies. But Jessica wasn't thinking about winning anymore. She wasn't thinking about strategy or points or prizes. She was thinking about Lily standing behind her, already learning to hate parts of herself at 8 years old, because her mother was teaching her through example that bodies were things to be controlled, punished, and hidden. The silence stretched longer than usual. Steve noticed her distress and stepped closer, his expression shifting from entertainer to concerned human being. "Take your time, sweetheart. What do you hide from your children?" Jessica looked up at Steve, then at the cameras, then at her family. For 15 years, she had been modeling self-hatred for her daughter while pretending to promote health and wellness. The weight of that hypocrisy was crushing her. When Jessica spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the complete silence of the studio, every word rang out with devastating honesty. "How I hate my body." The words fell like stones into still water. The studio audience gasped audibly. Jessica's family turned to stare at her in confusion and growing concern. Even the camera operators seemed to sense that something profound was happening. Steve Harvey, who had heard every conceivable answer to every possible question, felt his heart break as he processed what Jessica had just confessed. This wasn't a game show answer. This was a mother admitting she was poisoning her daughter's self-image. "Jessica," Steve said gently, setting down his cards and moving closer to her. "What do you mean by that?" The floodgates opened. 15 years of self-hatred, secret binges, and desperate purging came pouring out in words that revealed the hidden epidemic of eating disorders in seemingly healthy families. "I mean, I spend every day teaching my daughter to hate herself," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "I weigh myself 3 times a morning and she sees me do it. I refuse dessert and she thinks that's normal. I call myself fat in front of the mirror and she's starting to call herself fat too." The camera operators continued filming, but everyone in the studio understood they were witnessing something far more important than entertainment. This was a mother confessing that her eating disorder was infecting her child. Behind Jessica, her husband David was staring at her with a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. "Jessica, what are you talking about? You're a nutritionist. You're healthy." "I'm bulimic," Jessica sobbed. "I've been bulimic for 15 years. I eat nothing for days, and then binge on everything in the house before throwing it all up. And Lily is watching me do this. She's learning that this is what women do." Lily, her 8-year-old daughter, looked confused and frightened. "Mommy, why are you crying? You're not fat. You're beautiful." "But I don't feel beautiful, baby," Jessica said, kneeling down to her daughter's level. "And I'm so scared that I'm teaching you to feel the same way about yourself." Steve had hosted thousands of hours of television, But he'd never encountered a confession quite like this. This was a mother admitting that her mental illness was being passed to the next generation. "Jessica, look at me," Steve said, his voice firm but kind. "The fact that you're aware of this, the fact that it terrifies you, means you can stop it. Your daughter doesn't have to inherit your pain." But Jessica wasn't finished. 15 years of secret shame came pouring out in words that revealed the true insidiousness of eating disorders. "I count every calorie she eats," Jessica continued. "I panic when she asks for seconds. I've taught her to associate food with guilt instead of nourishment. She's 8 years old, and she already thinks her body is something to be controlled instead of celebrated." The honesty was devastating. Here was a nutritionist admitting that her professional knowledge meant nothing against the power of her eating disorder, and that she was unconsciously training her daughter to hate her own body. David had joined her at the podium now, wrapping his arms around her with a desperation that suggested he was trying to hold her together. "Why didn't you tell me it was this bad? Why didn't you ask for help?" "Because I'm supposed to be an expert," Jessica cried. "I counsel other people about healthy relationships with food while I'm destroying myself in secret. I'm a fraud, David. I'm teaching our daughter to be sick like me." Steve addressed the studio, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing is the reality of eating disorders. They don't discriminate. They affect mothers, professionals, people who look healthy from the outside." He turned back to Jessica. "But eating disorders are treatable, and the cycle doesn't have to continue. Your daughter can learn a different way." Steve reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his personal business card. But more than that, he gestured to someone off camera. Within moments, Dr. Rachel Chen, an eating disorder specialist, approached the stage. Dr. Chen works with families affected by eating disorders. She's going to help you understand that recovery is possible, and that you can teach your daughter to love her body instead of fighting it. The conversation that followed wasn't fully captured by the cameras. Chen spoke with Jessica about the difference between nutrition knowledge and eating disorder recovery, about family therapy that could help break the cycle, and about teaching children body positivity when you're still learning it yourself. David asked questions about how to support Jessica's recovery while protecting Lily from further exposure to disordered eating behaviors. Helen wanted to understand how she had missed the signs of her daughter-in-law's struggle. "The most important thing is that Jessica is ready to break the cycle," Dr. Chen explained. "With treatment, she can model recovery for her daughter instead of modeling illness." Lily looked up at her mother with 8-year-old wisdom. "Mommy, I think you're perfect. Can you think you're perfect too?" The question broke something open in Jessica's chest. "I'm going to try, baby. I'm going to learn how to love my body so I can teach you to love yours." The Park family never finished their Family Feud game that day. Instead, they started something more important: Jessica's journey toward eating disorder recovery and their family's education about body positivity. The episode that aired 8 months later became one of the most impactful Family Feud episodes in the show's history. But more importantly, it sparked national conversations about eating disorders, body image, and the ways parents unconsciously pass their insecurities to their children. Jessica received thousands of messages from viewers, many from other mothers struggling with eating disorders who thanked her for her courage. Eating disorder treatment centers reported increases in family therapy requests. But the real change happened in Jessica's recovery journey. Within a week of her Family Feud appearance, she entered intensive outpatient treatment for bulimia. The process was challenging, requiring her to confront not just her eating behaviors, but the body hatred that drove them. The family participated in therapy sessions, designed to help them create a household culture of body positivity. They removed scales from the house, changed how they talked about food, and practiced appreciating their bodies for what they could do rather than how they looked. Jessica's recovery wasn't linear. There were setbacks, difficult days, and moments when the old patterns felt easier than the new ones. But for the first time in 15 years, she was fighting her eating disorder instead of hiding it. 6 months after her breakdown on Family Feud, Jessica was in stable recovery. The binge and purge cycles had stopped. Her relationship with food was becoming healthier, and most importantly, Lily was learning new patterns. Today, Jessica is 34 years old and has maintained her recovery for 2 years. She left her nutrition practice to become an eating disorder recovery coach, using her professional knowledge and lived experience to help other families break the cycle. Lily is now 10 years old and shows a healthy relationship with food and body image. She eats when she's hungry, stops when she's full, and talks about her body with appreciation rather than criticism. The generational cycle of body hatred has been broken. David became an advocate for eating disorder awareness, speaking about the signs family members might miss and the importance of professional treatment. Helen learned to support recovery by changing how she talked about weight and appearance. Steve kept his promise to stay connected. When Jessica celebrated 1 year of recovery, she called the number on his business card. "I'm teaching my daughter to love her body," she told him, "because I'm finally learning to love mine." The secret that nearly destroyed Jessica's relationship with her daughter became the foundation for a family culture of body acceptance and mental health awareness. The shame that had isolated her became a bridge connecting her to other families struggling with similar issues. Jessica's story resonated far beyond that Family Feud studio, because it exposed how eating disorders hide in plain sight, affecting people who appear healthy and successful. It revealed how body hatred gets passed from mother to daughter like a toxic inheritance. The question that started as a simple survey response, "Name something you hide from your children," became the moment that saved not just Jessica's health, but her daughter's future relationship with her own body. Steve Harvey learned something that day about the hidden struggles of parenthood and the courage it takes to break cycles of self-hatred. "Sometimes people don't need entertainment," he said in later interviews. "Sometimes they need permission to stop pretending they're okay and start getting well." And Jessica Park, who spent 15 years hiding her eating disorder while accidentally teaching her daughter to hate her body, learned that recovery is possible at any stage, and that the most important lesson she could teach her daughter was how to break the cycle of self-hatred, because that's what love looks like. Choosing recovery over secrecy. That's what courage sounds like, admitting your flaws to protect your child. And that's what happens when a mother decides that her daughter's future is more important than her own shame. The body hatred that once consumed Jessica's life became the foundation for a family committed to body positivity, mental health awareness, and the radical act of teaching children to love themselves exactly as they are.